All right, Nick, let's talk about the Texas Longhorns, one of the hottest teams in all of college football right now, going into potentially a tough matchup against the Baylor Bears, a team that plays them very tough traditionally. This is a Baylor team who isn't necessarily all that good, but they could sneak up on Texas if they try to look past them. But, Nick, there's some good news on the horizons for the Longhorns and a key player who is making his way back to the field, who I think will be huge in this game versus Baylor.
Yeah, I think this is not just a great news for the Baylor matchup, but also the long-term trajectory of the Texas Longhorns, which is heading in one direction, and that is up. But like you alluded to, Miles, you got to focus on winning Saturday first. And that leads me directly into the question today for you Longhorns to answer in the comment section below. Give us your prediction of Texas versus Baylor. And look, I know on paper it's a mismatch, but you guys know just as good as I do. Baylor plays Texas tough, beat them in 2019, beat them in 2021. This is a feisty bunch. But here's your chance. Give us your prediction for how Texas is going to do final score-wise against Baylor in the comment section below. But all right, Miles, what you got? What's this great news out of Austin?
Yeah, Nick, we know Texas's proclivity to having great running backs. We all saw Bijan Robinson. We all heard about how Roshan Johnson was the next guy up. He was just behind Bijan Robinson on the roster. Well, the next guy on that roster was none other than CJ Baxter, the next up and coming running back at Texas. And this guy has been banged up a little bit this year, but now he is back and he's ready to get things rolling against the Baylor Bears. Let's go into the article and we'll talk about it afterwards. This is from Clutch Points. It says Texas football team is expected to have one of its most dynamic playmakers back for its upcoming game against Baylor. Running back CJ Baxter missed last week's victory over Wyoming because of a foot injury. The Texas football coach Steve Sarkisian indicated to reporters that CJ Baxter should be back on the field this Saturday. He looked great today. I was really excited about watching him at practice today. Best practice he has had in 2 weeks, so I feel good about him going into Saturday. Sarkisian said of Baxter via the Burnt Orange Nation. Baxter's foot injury has limited the amount of touches he's received in 2023. The Texas football star has been effective, though, in those limited opportunities. Baxter had 38 yards on just 5 carries in the Longhorns' 37-10 win over Rice. And when they beat Alabama 34-24, Baxter had 31 rushing yards and 4 receptions for 21 yards. So this guy can do a lot with a little bit, Nick. I think this could be huge, like you said, especially for this week, but for the greater future of the Texas program. This is a dynamic playmaker, and you want to have those on the field in spades when you're trying to go for a national championship. But Nick, what do you think about Baxter's return, and what do you think about the future for Texas now with the new playmaker?
Oh, obviously, Baxter's a really good player. He can do a lot of different things, like you alluded to, and not taking anything away from Jonathan Brooks, filling in for Baxter during Baxter's absence. Did a solid job, certainly the way he finished against Wyoming. But the reality, Baxter is more dynamic. He's more versatile. He gives the offense a kind of simple outlet, whether it's handing the football to him, or throwing the ball on a screen and a short pass to him. And I think that's the one concern if you're a Texas fan, and we saw it through most of the Wyoming game. If you start slow, if the passing game just isn't, the rhythm isn't there, the timing isn't right for whatever reason, production can drop pretty dramatically. And if you're a football team that's trying to compete to get into the college football playoff, one down loss can really derail your opportunities, right? Because we know there's a lot of really solid competitors for that Final Four this year. USC looks good. Oregon looks good. The Big Ten has 2 guys in Michigan and Ohio State. Of course, whoever wins the SEC, LSU is lurking. FSU is lurking. Like Notre Dame looks really good all of a sudden. It is going to be ultra competitive to get in that Final Four. You're going to you can't have any down games. You got to come out and play strong and beat every opponent you're supposed to beat and beat them decisively. The best and simplest way to do that is just to have a running back you can turn around and hand the football to and run for 150 yards and 3 scores. And that's exactly what Baxter can be for this offense. Add in the short passes too, for some more yards from scrimmage. And I think that's the one thing that should make Texas fans really excited by this news, because I think that's the concern I have about this offense is if Ewers is a little off, if Worthy isn't up on his A game, if Mitchell isn't playing his best that day. We've seen it a few times for a number of quarters. This offense just kind of goes a little stagnant, and that's not going to do against a quality football team, especially a feisty Baylor group, and certainly later on in the schedule where they play better teams. If you want to compete for national titles, you got to go out and beat up a Baylor team that is just not as good as they've been in years past. And the best way and simplest way to do that is just to run the football down their throats, run for 200+ yards between all your running backs, control the game, win 38-10. All the college football committee guys will be like, okay, solid conference win. Great job. Move on to the next. You don't want to be in these games like you were against Wyoming, where it was 10-10 against a team you should have killed late in the game. They managed to pull away, which is fantastic. You want to avoid that circumstance, especially as right now the goal clearly is college football playoff. That's the talent level on this team. We saw it in Tuscaloosa. They can't afford any letdowns. Best way to avoid that, just hand the rock to a great guy like Baxter. That's why it's an awesome news that he's returning for Texas this weekend.
Yeah, Nick, and I think the greater point here that we've talked about multiple times on this channel is the way of college football now is emulating the way in the NFL, and you can't just have one running back nowadays. The running back by committee approach is the future. That is the best way to keep these guys fresh. We saw it with Robinson. We saw it with Roschon Johnson. Now getting the freshman Baxter in the mix. This guy could be the future for this Texas program, but having Brooks haul all of the carries while Baxter was hurt isn't the way that this Texas offense needs to operate. They need to have these guys to be able to come in, come out, and just spell each other to keep the running game fresh, keep legs fresh, and just keep, like you said, up when the offense is potent. Passing attack isn't necessarily up to snuff.
And one other element I really want to harp on here, and it's important because we're starting to see it in the college game, certainly NFL game. Running the football protects your quarterbacks also from injuries. Fewer dropbacks means fewer hits in the pocket. More play action usually means a cleaner pocket to throw in 9 times out of 10. Having more running backs allows you to run the football more and more successfully. Again, it's all about thinking long-term. They have the ability to beat anybody on any day if Quinn Ewers and company, of course, this really talented defense is playing well. But just to have a stable of quality running backs led by the young Baxter, who I think has a fantastic career in front of him, will not only give them another option on offense to keep it simple, it also will protect their quarterback. Because right now, again, I hate to jinx it, I don't see a path for Texas that doesn't lead to the college football playoff unless they have a letdown game, unless Ewers gets injured or something like that. And getting Baxter into the fold will really help them get to where they need to go by protecting them against those kind of things.